All right. Got the chat going. Let's test this a little bit. Got screen with cam. Got the chat with cam. Got Proxmox ready to go. Terminal ready to go. I don't see anybody so far in the chat. Oh, looks like I got another viewer. Welcome. All right. Let's go ahead and roll the intro and we'll get this going. Hello and welcome to a Thursday live episode of Practical IT. I'm Jeremy, your host, and today I'm just going to be running through some things, kind of testing things out, and this is sort of my prep live episode to get ready for some things that are a little more thought out, a little more scheduled in advance. But this is something that I wanted to add for a while now, and I think I finally got most of the settings worked out so that I can pretty easily do this going forward. So I've had some pretty decent interest in the recent video I did on Proxmox Virtualization Edition. And so we're going to spend some time today going through that. I'm going to try to keep an eye on the chat and we'll try to answer questions on the fly as we go through this. So that's kind of the setup for today. I am expecting to be live for at least 45 minutes, but I've allotted up to 90 minutes. So until 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That's sort of my hard cutoff. So I'm going to switch over to the Proxmox screen now, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and then we will go through a few things that I've talked about before, but I can go into a little bit more detail now. So switch over there. All right, so on your screen, you should be seeing the Proxmox virtualization environment. This is version 6.1, update 7, and I've got a series of virtual machines here on the side that I have brought onto the system, either built directly on here or converted from a VirtualBox VM. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to kill this one right here. I'm going to let's see. Now we are going to, let's see, this one. Okay, maybe I won't do that. Scratch that idea. And it looks like I've got a warning up about the recommended bit rate. So we'll see if this becomes an issue going forward. All right. So let's see. In a previous video, I went through and I did a conversion from a virtual machine that was built in VirtualBox and brought that over to Proxmox VE. Now, I'm going to switch over to the terminal. And let me make sure that switched over. It did on my end. So, on the terminal, from my Mac Mini, I have some OVA files in this directory, or OVF files. And OVA files. So you extract the OVA and are able to see the contents by using tar-xf and then the name of the OVA file. So as you can see here, I've done that already, and so I have these three files. The one that we're most concerned with is the VMDK file. And that's the virtual hard disk file. So if we come down to this command, we are copying using secure copy, SCP, the VMDK file right here to the Proxmox server. User root at, we've got our IP address, colon, and then the directory you want to place that file into. And then over on the Proxmox server, if we do, let's see, history, grep, let's see, history, and go into tail. So we convert that VMDK file using QEMU image. Tell it what you're going to do. Convert. The starting file is of type VMDK, and this is the file name. The output is going to be of type QCOW2, and we've got the file name with the proper extension. So once we have done that part, then you issue the command QM import disk. You tell it the VM number, VM101. You tell it the file name for the QCOW2 file, and then the repository on Proxmox that you want to import it into. So that catches you up with where I was at with this particular VM before coming into this live stream. Viewers will experience buffering. I apologize for that. I will have to make some adjustments. Let me make a note here. Okay, my apologies for the buffering. I guess I have a few updates yet to make to this to make it really work. So, alright, let me check one thing here. And it looks actually like it's working fine on my end, but we will see how this turns out. Okay, so back to Proxmox. So the virtual machine we're looking at is 101. So like I did in that last video, after that QM import disk command, you have an unused disk listed on your VM. And so you want to take that and double click on it and click add. So we've now added that to the virtual machine. Then we need to proceed to options and change the boot order, because the default is to boot from a SCSI disk and we deleted that disk. So we want to change that to IDE 0. And that gets us to the point where we can go ahead and launch this virtual machine. If we go to console, we should here momentarily see that we are booting this machine up. Maybe. And we're off. And this will boot up here shortly. All right. And we're in the install of Ubuntu that I did earlier today on VirtualBox. And all I did was move the disk over to the Proxmox VE box. So if we look at HTOP, I gave this 2 gigs of RAM. It's got 2 processor cores, and the usage is pretty low at the moment. So that is where we're at on the Proxmox. So let's take that out of full screen. I'm going to switch over and see if there are any questions at the moment in chat. Let me see. Okay, I do have a few questions, so let me take a look at that here. Okay, Christopher asks, do you find Proxmox easier to use than QEMU and KVM? Well, so Proxmox is basically a front end on those 2 pieces of technology. In the back end, Proxmox is using QEMU and KVM. The part of the reason that I started looking into Proxmox again is that I had done a video on setting up KVM, QEMU, and Virt Manager, and then I found out that Red Hat, that does the majority of, or a good chunk anyways, of the development on Virt Manager, they decided to drop that, and instead they are pushing the use of Cockpit, which I'm sure you're familiar with. It's a web-based management interface. It does work on pretty much any Linux distro, and that's kind of their direction that they're pushing. I would expect that most of the other distributions are going to follow suit, but it's the Linux universe. You just never know what people are going to do, and they very well might decide, somebody might decide to start developing Virt Manager and you know, give it the overhaul that it deserves, to be a little bit more in line with things like VirtualBox. So easier to use, I would call that 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Virt Manager, I didn't really have any problems using. I found it a little bit on the clunky side. I guess I'm getting more and more to the point where I do like having a web-based interface for things, because I could set up a Raspberry Pi and run all my management from a Raspberry Pi if I had a Proxmox server somewhere else. And I guess I could be fairly happy with that with a Pi 4 and, you know, the 4 gig of RAM version. So, hopefully that answers your question, Christopher. For some things, I do find Proxmox to be a little bit more intuitive. For other things, I'm still trying to get over the learning curve on it. I'm not completely happy with the way I've got my server set up, and that comes down to the fact that I had previously on this particular server, I had what's the name of that? XCP-ng installed, and I did not erase all of the hard drives before I installed Proxmox VE, so I've been dealing with a little bit of residual LVM craziness left over from XCP-ng. So it's been a bit of a journey, but I looked at it as one of those things that, hey, with everybody being sort of stuck at home, I'm trying to be as productive as possible and do a few more things that, I might have been putting off for a while. I like to tell people I've got an honorary PhD in procrastination. And, doing videos and now pushing to start doing the live streams on a more regular basis. It's kind of holding me accountable. Currently in this particular server, I'm using mechanical drives. I have not invested in the adapters to put 2.5-inch drives in this sad old server I've got. It's an old super micro dual processor Xeon with 2 4-core Xeon chips. It's only got 16 gigs of RAM in it. This server is probably 10 or 11 years old. I bought it used 4 or 5 years ago, and I've used it for various projects in the interim. But yeah, that's kind of the road I've been down with it. One thing I would like to do with it maybe later this year is get some matched solid state drives and put in there, because it'll reduce the power consumption and the noise to some extent. Hopefully the fans won't have to blow quite as hard. But I've also been looking. I'm lucky being around the Lansing, Michigan area. We've got Michigan State University not too far from where I live. And when things are normal and we're not in the middle of a pandemic, they've got what is called MSU Surplus, which they basically take a lot of their machines from campus and they will resell those to the public. So they normally have some pretty decent deals on used servers. So I'm hoping that maybe sometime in the next 6 months they will be open back up to the public, and I'll be able to see about snagging a slightly newer rack mount server so that I can play with a few more of the features of Proxmox and maybe look at some of the clustering capabilities too. That would be kind of fun to play with. Up to this point, I've not had multiple servers set up to be able to play with the clustering capabilities. But that is something that I would like to take a look at. Any other questions, Christopher or Jay? Looks like the two of you are sort of driving the chat at the moment, so I'm willing to answer any questions you've got to the best of my ability and help pass some time this afternoon. Alright, so while we're waiting to see if anybody else has questions in the chat, I'm going to switch back over to Proxmox and grab the IP address off the VM here. And that is on oh, well, it doesn't have an IP address. That's not good. Oh, thank you, Christopher. I'm still rather new to the whole live streaming thing. This is not something I've done a lot of. Just trying to help pass the time and maybe share some knowledge in the interim while we're stuck at home. At least in Michigan, I'm stuck at home pretty much, other than going to the grocery store. So hopefully between the live streams and my other videos that I've made, people are getting something out of the channel. So let's see. Oh, we're up to 6 viewers. Woohoo! Considering I didn't really advertise this too much beforehand, I'm pretty happy with that. Alright, so I do not have an IP address on the server, the virtual server that I converted over to Proxmox, so I'm going to shut that down. And we will take a look at some of the settings. Thank you, Christopher. You know, it's funny, the fog thing, I guess at the beginning I was just in the right place at the right time. I was, let's see, this has been 2-ish years now. I was working as an IT instructor at a small vocational college, and the IT manager needed to start imaging all of the laptops for the students. They used laptop carts, and they would just wheel them into each classroom. So they needed to image all of these laptops and move from Windows 7 to Windows 10. And the particular implementation of, I think they had Ghost, it might have been whatever Microsoft's equivalent is, the SCCM, I believe it is. They had something like that available, but it had never really been set up properly and worked correctly. And so, me being the Linux guy I am, I took the server I had in my classroom and I did a proof of concept. And my proof of concept entailed imaging the computers in the classroom, and doing so in such a fashion that we could easily move them from Windows to Linux depending on what class I was teaching. And so when the IT manager saw me demo this for him, he enlisted my help, and we ended up using fog to image several laptop carts worth of computers that ended up getting used in the classrooms. And I've been gone from that job for almost 2 years, and I'm not entirely sure if he's still using my setup of fog. But this particular person in question is a Windows guy, and so if he's still using fog, I have no idea whether he's updated it or not. And when I installed it, I think it was on version, I think that coincided with the first set of fog videos I did for the channel. I think that was 1.3.4. So, you know, if it works for him, great. We set it up in such a fashion that he could pick up the server and take it to any of the 3 campuses, and with the server and a switch and some cables, and he could image laptops on any of the campuses. So I'm seeing a message that I've got excessive buffering. I'm going to try to make an adjustment here. And see what we can do. Maybe I can help the cause here. Bit rate. Streaming. Maybe that'll help the cause. I made a little bit of an adjustment in OBS, so hopefully this is going to work out. So anyways, that's sort of the story of how I got started with fog, and basically that is where my channel really started getting kickstarted, is all the people that have watched the fog videos. I've done videos installing it in slightly different ways. Some people want to use the fog server as sort of a DNS and DHCP server and have it pretty much standalone, not connected to a production network. Other people want to have it connected to the production network, and in that case they need to make the changes in their router, whatever router they're using, to set up the Pixie boot. And we've gone from stream health is excellent to errors. Okay. We recommend that you use a stream bitrate of 4500 kilobit per second, which I did set that up. So let me double check some things here. Output streaming. Okay. Change that to 3,500. Well, let's see. Wondering if this is a lost cause at this point. But I will hang out and see if the settings kick back in. I'm hoping that this may correct itself. I've got a suspicion that there are a lot of people streaming this afternoon, and oh, and it looks like we're back. Hopefully people are still around. And it's buffering again. Okay, so it looks like I need to do a few more tweaks on the live stream. I was hoping to do this again tomorrow, but it may be one of those things where I try to shoot for Fridays in May. I may try to do one tomorrow, but I may do a couple other test streams later tonight that are just private and test out some of the settings to see if I can get things a little bit more consistent, since I've got some choppy things happening right now and it is buffering. But we'll see if this corrects itself or not. Been live for about 30 minutes, give or take. So, yeah. Stream status is telling me it's poor. So, we'll see. We'll see how this turns out. I'm curious to see what the video is going to look like on YouTube once the stream is over and the live recording of the live stream is there for people to view after the fact. So we'll see. If you're still out there, feel free to drop in the chat any topics that you might like me to go into in a future live stream. I'm always interested in trying something new and different, and hey, if it makes my viewers happy, then all the better. So let me see if nothing more in the chat, and it jumped back to stream is excellent. Not real sure what's going on with that, but hey, it's all good. Taking a look at analytics and different things on the YouTube side. That was one thing I didn't set that I did before. Okay, so yeah, I probably need to change a few of these settings in the back end on YouTube before I go live again. and maybe I can improve things for the next go of this. So here's hoping. Here's hoping. YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. Alright, let's take a look at the chat one more time. And I don't have a production crew, so I'm trying to handle all this with 2 monitors and a Stream Deck, and kind of bouncing back and forth between different windows. So I appreciate everybody's patience, those of you that have stuck around. So I'm going to jump back to the Proxmox screen. Just make sure that is in fact displaying. Okay, so let's look at settings in Proxmox. So we got options, and let's see here. Hardware, network, it's supposed to be bridged. Well, let's boot this up one more time and see if we pull an IP address. And maybe we'll have a little bit better luck this time around. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to set the delay on the back end of YouTube just to compensate for the low upload speed that I'm working with here on my end. All right. Let's see. Maybe interesting. All right, well, just funny to me that this is acting strange, because I'd been through a couple of these and network and all worked just fine. But I will deal with that one later. So Yeah, that's pretty much where I had intended to go with this video today, the live stream today. Still a couple little quirks I'm going to work on tonight, and if I decide to do a live stream tomorrow, hopefully I will have some more of this worked out in advance. So we shall see here. But let's see. Let me try one other change here, which I don't think is going to help my cause. Don't think it's going to help my cause, but we will try it. See if this changes anything. If not, then I may need to make some other adjustments, both on the YouTube backend and on some network settings here. Drop frames. A third of the frames are being dropped, it looks like. Okay, so that's not so great. All right. So that's going to wrap up my live stream today. I'm happy that a few of you joined in, and I had a few questions, and hopefully by the time I do this, either tomorrow or probably a week from tomorrow, hopefully I'll have a few more people join in, and hopefully I won't have quite as many drop frames and glitches with the video. So until next time, I want to thank everybody that has watched this or who may watch this in the replay. If you've not taken a moment to do so, I see my two people in the live stream have liked this already. Thank you. If anybody's viewing this in the playback, please like, subscribe, and any productive comments that you leave below, I will try to take into consideration to make improvements in the future. So until next time, thank you for watching, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day.